You're listening to We Deepen Media.
Hey, loves. Have you heard about the other podcast on the We Deepen Network? First, Political Hope by Indy Rishi explores the lives, events, and minds pivotal for human evolution. Not always overtly political, Political Hope is intended to empower you to recognize your inherent voice and ability to enact progress in your local and global communities. Second, Legends by Dr. Nikki is a journey to activate your fullest self-expression. Dr. Nikki interviews leaders who have transcended perceived limitations in order to make meaningful impact. Guests share their stories to teach you how to optimize your body, brain, and spiritual connection to manifest a truly fantastic life. Find Political Hope and Legends at WeDeepen.com or search for them now in your podcast app. Hit the subscribe or follow button and check them out after this episode of Deepen with Christina. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I'm your host, Christina Weber, founder of We Deepen, Feminine Weapon, and also a certified love coach for anybody who wants to ignite more joy in the dating journey, deepen connection with your significant other, or find love within community. If you enjoy this podcast, please definitely go subscribe, rate, like, follow on whatever network that you're listening to. It helps more people discover it and find it. Also, go to the We Deepen calendar. When you go to WeDeepen.com, click on that, become a member and calendar, and you will discover all types of social and transformational experiences, from the 8th annual biohacking conference to Tantra speed dates, home conscious dating salon, the magic of human connection, Bhakti Love Fest, Relate Fest, open relating experience for anybody in an open relationship. I am giggling a little bit right now, and this is going to be a fun episode because, speaking of the calendar, one of my favorite experiences coming up, Unleash. It is September 23rd to the 25th in Austin, Texas. Isn't it interesting with these podcasts? Because you are listening to real life conversations. A lot of it is improv, although I do come in and knowing the points and the people that I want you to meet. But a lot of the conversation is just pushing that button record and just going for it. Not worrying about sounding perfect or what you're going to think about me. I was actually even telling, there's a male that I'm working with who is expanding his men's work brand within Annapolis. And he was feeling a little like resistance or fear in his path. And I just said to him, I was like, your ego is so big. And he looked at me like, what do you mean my ego? What? I feel the complete opposite way. My ego is not big. And I'm like, no, you're so concerned about yourself that you are withholding your message from other people. You're not getting out there and serving. So even sometimes when you step into new ventures and new things and have some fears around it, sometimes you just push the record button and you go and you see what happens. And this is the perfect guest to have as I talk through being fully expressed and just, again, pushing that record button and just going like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just go. So I have Yarixa here with me. Yari has been a guest on my previous podcast, Your Love Accomplice, a few times. And now I believe this is her third or fourth time on Deepen with Christina. And her podcasts are some of the most listened to because she is one of the most eccentric, interesting, charismatic human beings I know. I often compare her to Tony Robbins, and she always looks at me like, you're crazy. But it's so true, because she is the type of medicine that just, it frees you. She really does free you. So even of this podcast, I could have stopped it and said, let's start over. But you know what? Just fucking go. Just do it and let it roll out. So Yadi, you have Unleash is coming up again. And Unleash began, for those that don't know, Unleash began in Los Angeles in 2018, and it started as a 4-hour guided dance journey. And during COVID, it expanded into become a 3-day transformational festival retreat. And it's interesting to put these words festival and retreat together. And the reason is because it has the intimacy of being in a retreat. There's 200 people. And then the festival flair about the experience, because there's dancing and tons of workshops. There's a lot of adornment. People are dress themselves up. Some of them are naked. It is also a substance-free experience. And it's so beautiful to be in a container with people who are fully expressed, but not expressed because they're on drugs. They're expressed because that's actually what is challenging coming through for them. So Yadi, welcome to your 4th episode of Deep In with Christina.
I love you, Christina. And you're just so amazing. It's kind of hilarious. I just want to speak to that point where I was like, were you coaching that guy, telling him he has a big ego? You're hilarious. Oh my God. I just want to say thank you again for having me on this podcast. And it's my pleasure and honor, to be here with you and to be here with the people and, share some of this magic. Absolutely. So again, what was the question that you just asked me? Did you ask me a question?
I didn't ask you a question. I welcomed you to the show. Okay. However, you know what? It's interesting. Yes, it was. I'm coaching, working with a client to network his men's work into the We Deepen network and beyond. He's in Maryland, and it's, we see a lot of this transformational work happening in majorly populated cities where a lot of the quote unquote conscious community gathers, like Unleash, Austin, Texas, Bali, somewhat in New York City, some parts of Miami, but in these more suburban cities, like Annapolis, Maryland, you don't necessarily get access to this type of work. People have to travel to it. And that's what, unleashes this invitation. And yes, I did share to this client of mine and said, as he was, I could see his energy was moving into directions. He wants to work with men, and he's doing something with the grandmas right now. And not necessarily, he is stepping out in front of him, but I knew that he needed a little bit of push. And I said that to him, like, oh, wow, your ego is so big. And I could see his face go white, like, what? And I essentially was replicating an experience that I had about a decade ago. I had this big fear of public speaking. And my teacher at the time, I was studying at the Kabbalah Center in New York City, and my teacher looked at me and said the same thing. Your ego is so big. And I remember thinking, like, what is he talking about? No, my ego is not. And he's like, yeah, you're hoarding information and you're withholding it from other people, where you could say something that would actually, help somebody else, break through or could really feed your knowledge, and your wisdom could feed somebody else and very much support them. And so it is oftentimes that we are not fully expressed because our egos are so big and we're so concerned about our own individuality.
Yeah, I totally now hear what you were trying to share with this man. And, I kind of think about that as also like selfishness, right? If you were to have also said something like, oh my God, you're so selfish. And he's like, wait, me? What? I'm being of service. But actually, when you withhold the totality of who you are withholding from people the inspiration that they could possibly be getting from you, right? And I'll give a little bit of an example of a girl who shared about her whole transformation when she came to Unleash in the Sacramento called Heaven on Earth. That was the theme of that Unleash. And funny enough, I started sharing spoken word maybe about 2 years ago. And it started to just flow out of me. And then I had a hesitation about sharing my spoken word at Unleash because I was afraid that I would forget the words because I've had this issue with memory ever since I was a child, that a teacher put me on stage to recite a piece of poetry, and my mom, had agreed to me doing that, and I had to memorize it the day before, and I did. But for some reason, when I got to it, I went completely blank, and I was 5 years old, and all I could do was like, Mom, and I just started crying, and I just went up to her, and she just came and, hugged me, and she's like, what happened? Because there was such an expectation of me because I was so brilliant and whatever. And this expectation was placed on me to memorize a piece of poetry and deliver it the very next day. And then ever since then, I've had, sort of like a trauma with it of like not memorizing pieces. And what ended up happening was like, you know what, I'm going to share this anyway. And I did my best to memorize this piece of poetry, and I nailed it. And what ended up happening in that particular Unleash is that afterward, she's never done spoken word before in her life. No poetry has flowed out of her. And all of a sudden, she is now a channel of spoken word. And what it took was me showing up at my fullest potential, right? And sharing something that I was even afraid of, but I did it anyway. And that catalyzed her into some artistry and talent that she wasn't even aware of until it was activated in her. And so what I love about Unleash is that it gives people an opportunity to even discover things about themselves that they didn't even know they had. And I know this very well because I didn't used to think that I was creative. I didn't used to think that I was an artist. I didn't used to think that I was a dancer. I didn't used to think I was a public speaker. And now that's what I am all the way through and through and through. And, when we allow ourselves and give ourselves the permission to do it anyway, the world before us unfolds. And that's very much so how Unleash even came into existence. I was so afraid to explicitly dance the way that my soul and my body really wanted to, because I was afraid of being criticized, of, it being too much, too slutty, too whatever, too much. And there came a point when I was hanging out with 4 friends, and these 4 friends of mine were all artists. And the reason why they were all artists also, by the way, we're talking about manifestation here, is that after I got my divorce, I started to ask myself what I really wanted in life. And I wanted to be surrounded by artists, creatives, sexually liberated people, open-minded people, people that were here to change the world, people that cared about the well-being of the planet, etc. And so here I am now with, just maybe 2 weeks later of opening the space up for myself. These people start showing up in my life. And I was hanging out with these friends that one of them is an official rock star. He's the lead singer of Walk the Moon. He's one of my best friends now. And
he came to Unleash too, right?
Yeah, he did. He came to the last Unleash, by the way, guys. So sometimes we get private concerts from really special people that you would pay a lot of money for to actually meet them in person, right? But at Unleash, we have this intimate experience. But the point of the story, so I don't lose this, is that I felt inadequate amongst them. I didn't feel like, I was like, wait, what am I doing here with these amazing artists and musicians and singers? And I just felt like, oh my God, and I started to feel the pressure, the constriction, the nerves when hanging around them in this social setting. And there came a moment in time at that particular gathering that this piece of music came on that was a real raunchy Brazilian funk song that kind of is like da 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 tranquilo, da favorable. It's really like it's very like twerky kind of music, and it's very tribal and it has those African roots. And I couldn't at that moment contain myself from dancing in that way. And once I did that, literally, I took off all my clothes and I started running around the room full liberation, because it was the first time in my life that I actually felt myself. It was as if my soul had fully integrated and dropped into my body. And it was like being reborn is what I felt like. And then shortly after, went to Burning Man, danced my freaking face off. People thought I was a performer. And what I noticed in the room as I dropped to my knees with this other man that was there was that, you know, they were all like activated also into dancing. Right after we finished dancing, and they were activated into their form. And my friend's like, oh my God, Yadi, you have to be in my music video. I didn't even know you had this, and you got to do this for work. And I'm like, I know. I don't know how. But either way, what I did recognize in that moment as I liberated myself from dancing, 2 weeks after that, the opening of Creating Unleash happened just 2 weeks after, because I faced my biggest fear, which was dancing explicitly, truly how I wanted to express. And then from there, public speaking had to naturally happen, because now I'm in front of people activating them, right? And so all of these expressions, whether artistic or, you know, even the entrepreneur hat that I got to put on, started to come online. And I've been in, this experience continues to unleash me every day of my life. I get initiated into the wildest things possible and facing all of my fears, because I couldn't be doing this unless I was willing to face all of my fears. So I can be the space holder and container holder for the people that have, really want to express themselves in a certain way and haven't known how to, or haven't been safe enough to, or, been surrounded in spaces sometimes that, is filled with, it could be drinking, or it could be environments that they don't want to participate or be part of. So this is it's turned into a 3-day substance-free experience that is filled with different workshops and world-class facilitators that I've handpicked. And I have a network of people in my field that are literally some of the most masterful teachers and coaches. And they come here to assist in the unleashing process of people, right? To set ourselves free and create a world that we really want to live in. I mean, imagine if all of us had the opportunity to express ourselves how we really want to in our unique individuality, without someone making us bad or wrong about it, that we have full permission to exist exactly as we are, and give ourselves like these ping-ponging inspirations from one another, because what I see in somebody over here inspires me to do something here. And then I then inspire somebody else to do something over there. So it's this whole like container of amplifying our creative juices and our joy and our childlike innocence and our play. And of course, imagine coming out of that space and coming back into your workflow. I mean, you will literally, the abundance that's going to come through you at that point, because you're in a space of full on creation is amazing. Yeah, I can keep going, babe. But, if you have questions for me, ask me, because I have stories to tell about the transformations that happen here.
Amazing. I do want to definitely go into the stories of transformation. And what I appreciate about you is that you're in the journey with everybody else, and you are stripping away these layers that have held you back, the layers of the ego, to essentially be able to express more love into the world, to be more pure of a version of yourself. And the idea isn't that everybody becomes like Yadi. The idea is that everybody becomes a more deeper expression of themselves. They actually become themselves. You leave feeling more like yourself than ever before. And that's the power of being in a group. And oftentimes, while I brought up, there is this spark in some of the smaller towns that may not have had access to these transformational experiences, but now they're seeing, through social media or through, even someone like Gwyneth Paltrow and Goop, they're seeing like the sparks. Even, what I had mentioned of Aaron Rodgers, an NFL player. There is an article in High Times about how he is sitting and doing ayahuasca ceremonies. And you can be at home and you can read Eat, Pray, Love, and you can do your own online courses. And when you get into community and you're activated by each other, and what I also really appreciate about the spaces that you are creating is that the facilitators are walking in and they're intermingling with the people who are in attendance, and there's no level of seniority over anybody else. It's, as you said, you're hanging out with the rock stars and with, successful entrepreneurs, but none of that matters in that space. It's almost like everybody is just, through the guidance of the facilitation, through the program, you're guided into this deep state of presence in the moment. There's no cell phones, it's to put them away for the weekend. And everybody feels seen. And if there's times too, if it's too much, I've seen people go and, you can meditate and you can have your own private space and you can journal. And then you can come back into communion with each other. And the stories, as you said, we'll go into some of the stories of transformation, but the connections that are made. I know there's one baby that was just born from an unleashed baby. Yes. And there's so many just beautiful connections. So there's almost like a cult like following at this point, because you see the same faces over and over and over. And then there's these, new newbies that continue to weave through as this network or this community continues to build within Unleashed. I do also want to speak with I mentioned a little bit of the types of people we've talked about who come to Unleashed. I do think there's a misconception sometimes that it's a bunch of hippies. Look at all those hippies. No, there is a full spectrum of human beings, from healers to entrepreneurs to rock stars and musicians and performers, and really special people who are coming there for their own self-development and growth, and also to share that with other people.
And actually, let's talk about this story, because this is really important. This is how it can totally change and shift a whole family dynamic. My brother, who has special needs, he is autistic and developmentally challenged since he, was born, ended up coming to the Unleash in Miami. And Miss Christina Weber over here, she volunteered herself to chaperone my little brother. And I knew that he needed a companion in order to be at a place like Unleash, because, it can be a lot of stimulus for somebody like him. And especially my brother hadn't had any friends for the past 10 years. And my parents imagine that they have a 33-year-old man at this point that they've been caring for. He can't take care of himself, or hadn't been able to take care of himself. And so the level of stress that they experience when John only hangs out with them. And so their level of stress, their sadness, their depression, for not finding outlets for John, because John is also like an in-betweener. He's like in the middle of the spectrum, so to speak. And it has been really challenging for my parents to find outlets for him. And he was so unmotivated. All he ever wanted to do was play video games, put the VR on, get lost in there. But also he would scream at the television. He would make up just stories about mobs and killing and all the things, that the darker sort of dense energies that you could imagine. And when I used to go back home, my parents would offload onto me, because they don't have anybody to offload into, right? They're not necessarily going to therapy or taking care of themselves. But this shifted, and it shifted when he came to Unleash. And when he was at Unleash, he felt so seen by everyone, people would stop and have conversations with him. And of course, Christina took really good care. But he danced so much that I even pulled him up on stage. And for the first time in his life, he was celebrated. He was celebrated for his uniqueness and celebrated for existing. There was even nothing. It was just like, oh my God, you exist. Yeah, John, and that led to shortly after, I'm talking about like a week and a half, he joined Special Olympics for soccer. He gained new friends. He stopped playing video games. He stopped stuff feeding himself because he was eating in a way that was like trying to fill a void of his heart. That's, things have been missing in his life and connection has been missing in his life. He now stops whenever he's full. So imagine what then happened with my parents. My parents took a whole load of stress off their shoulders because now John, the way that they interact with him is so vastly different. So it alleviated so much heaviness just from coming to Unleash. And, that's just one story of one person coming through. And this is obviously a marginalized, person that is highly autistic and things like that. And then we had a blind girl for the first time as well. Her name is Kimberly. I was just amazed that she came by herself. And we've had people in the past, for the first time come, not needing to have a friend with them. They're just like, okay, I'm just going to buy my ticket because the need for feeling liberation and the need for experiencing that in this lifetime is so essential because we have one life, we have one body right now in this moment. And are we going to wait for our next time life when we reincarnate, or are we going to do it in this one? And why not this one? I used to say in my next time life, I'll be a dancer. And in 2017 was when it hit me. And I was like, no, in this lifetime, I'm a dancer. And everything has changed and shifted for me. But it also, speaks to people who are entrepreneurs in business that might need a little bit more of creative expression so that it's not so linear all the time or such routine and so much structure, and they're so heady and cerebral and trying to figure things out with their mind. It's like there gets to be a balance between the heart, mind, and spirit. And our body, the embodiment aspect, is what alchemizes so much at Unleash, is because we're coming into our body, which brings us into our present state of being, which reduces all of the incessant thoughts about worry, doubt, all the things that we think. It puts us into an actual state of what is actually happening. And that gives us an opportunity to download some creative ideas and journal about it. And it also, when we're in our body, that pent up energy that we have and that stress and constriction from working so much, that gets to be released, because emotions is energy and motion. And I know Tony Robbins talks about this, right? Energy and motion. And I've been in health and wellness all my life. 20 years, I coach people, to getting into their bodies. And now I do it just in a different form and in a way that's so playful and unique. And just to share a little bit about the array of things that are happening at this Unleash is we have beatboxing workshops. I mean, where are you going to go and get that? But also, EFT, emotional freedom technique tapping. And then you also have the very festive type of, DJ sets and that very eccentric and express yourself type of environment and adorn yourself. I really believe in putting sparkles on and get wild. Why not? Right? And when you put those things on, you activate a different part of you as well. And then we also have Tantra and energetic de-armoring process to help us take off the layers that we've stacked on ourselves, whether that is for our voices that we've put on layers of armor, right? An armor for our sexual organs, an armor for our hearts. that we don't even know it's there. We can feel that we're not being ourselves, but we are really giving people an opportunity to set themselves free. So I can't be any happier in my life to do the work that I'm so passionate about. Like, there's nothing else in the world that I would be doing. If, money wasn't involved, I still would be doing it. It's that type of thing. I just created some, fun things for my friends, just like showed up and did my thing because it lights me up so much that I do it anyway.
And when you say you just created some fun things for yourself, that's when you're showing up at private events or birthday parties, as you said, and you activated those people in the room by sharing your magic and by sharing Unleash there. And I think that's also true for anybody who's listening, who has a company or a private event coming up, and you can show up at those and you can activate people.
Yeah. And actually, I'd like to say this. There was just this past weekend, I showed up to a friend of a friend's house who just had met me at another friend's because I activated the space, and he was so inspired that he connected me to this person that works with billionaires and CEOs of really large companies. And he has a pretty large following, and it ends up that even someone like him, who is literally like the person that works with these CEOs and billionaires, how I showed up inspired him to be like, oh my God, you just inspired me to show up more in my totality. I want to bring more of my comedy side now, to my Zoom calls of 5,000 people. And I want to bring, the totality of me more to these people, because I gave him permission. That, like, the way that the room opened up was just so palpable that it activated that thing in him. And this man makes thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, even for someone like him, he could totally have expanded, and obviously he's doing something right already. We're all doing something right already. We get to acknowledge that part of ourselves, but where can we expand? And that is the question. What are the places that haven't really been seen by us and we would really like to see happen in this lifetime? And the other aspects of it is loving and accepting the parts of ourselves that we've shamed, have guilted, or have deemed wrong. Because when we brush that part of ourselves under the rug as if it's non-existent and rejecting it, it means that you're rejecting yourself. And in the rejection of yourself, you're rejecting the full expression of you, right? Because then you can't allow other things in.
And, to get a little bit personal, is that my last Unleash experience, the one in Miami, I went into, if you listen to this podcast, you've heard this before, is that I had, I imagined I'm in my early 40s, and I imagined that I would be married and have children at this point in my life. And prior to this past Unleash, I was engaging with a hypnotherapist about how do I rid myself from the deep desire that I have to be a mother. Because if that's not meant to happen for me this lifetime, I just don't want the pressure of that. And so when I went into this Unleash, I was having those conversations, and then I met somebody there, and I started a new relationship, and we were in relationship for about 3 months, and I am about a month out of that. And it was a very, that relationship was a very significant relationship in my life. And coming out of it, so I looked at it that my Unleash happened for 3 months. I was in a 3-month Unleash. And oftentimes I see that when people leave an experience like that, it's like a constant integration process, and the medicine is still staying with you until it's done. So almost I've exited out of my last Unleash, and it was a 3-month experience and a journey before now I go to the next one in a month. And in coming out of it, I got what I asked for. I have completely let go of the strong desire. It doesn't mean that I don't have a desire for it, but I've also in a new place where I'm okay without it. I have a deeper trust in God in my own journey. And it wasn't something, the thought was there first. It was like, I want to shift this. Why can't I shift this? But it's like your body needs to actually activate into the feeling of that. And it's not meaning, again, that I don't fantasize and I, don't have an intention for that, but it's that, it's not leading me. My own, intuition and my own, the totality of me and my trust into where my energy is best spent is more of what's now driving me, instead of operating in the space of oh, this is what's supposed to happen. This is what's supposed to, I got to find it. And I also think that I was one of those people that looked at Unleash and I was like, I'll never meet my guy at Unleash. He's not going to an Unleash. He's out in his office. He's doing something else. He's just not at Unleash. And now to be able to see the continuation of really interesting people that come to it and to wipe that away, you never know who you're going to meet at that experience, and how in the groups of the continuation of the medicine that you are seeding, it seeds inside of each of us, and we're constantly reflecting and feeding back to each other.
Oh my God, Christina. Yeah, you nailed it on that. It's like the trickle effect that happens post Unleash. That's not just at Unleash, but I actually, this past weekend, I also, anywhere I go, actually, at this point, it's always I meet 2 people at least that have come to Unleash anywhere in the world now. And this one guy who came to Unleash, oh my God, years ago, in LA, he's like, oh my God, I came to this gathering because I knew you were going to be here and I needed to tell you that you changed my life. And he shared with me that led to, somehow somebody inspired him that he, at that particular Unleash, that he started following, that then led him to Orrin Harris, that he started coaching with right after Unleash. And that literally expanded his whole world, right? But it was because of the people and the community that he met there that led him on this other path that literally has led him to his life purpose. And we know Orrin, and Orrin might have been a guest on your show before, right? And the community of people here, the woman that I'm living with now in Texas came to my very first Unleash in LA. That's how I knew her. And it's so beautiful to just see all of the ways in which we help and support each other out afterwards too. It's kind of mind blowing, truthfully. And I go support other people's events, and it's just it's mind blowing, because I really love to, experience and witness how other people have stepped into, their power and doing what they love and their purpose and all these things. And it's not always about just living your purpose. It's about truly expressing who you are as an individual and not dying this lifetime with regret.
And I think too, it's also important to use, you mentioned a little bit before about Unleash being substance free. And I think that's also a reason why these connections are made on a more of a deeper level, because the energy that is required to include alcohol and drugs at particular events is something to note. If you think about it, even the conversations, what do we bring? What are you taking? Where is it? Where do we go? Where do you throw it in the trash? It's just, how do we overcome the hangover? there's a lot of things that disconnect you from the present moment when you have to also include alcohol and substance in there. And when you alleviate that, people drop further into their more authentic self. And because they don't have that distraction, again, even that distraction comes from like, what are you bringing? Even the conversation about it. And it's just when you take it out, you just you have more, a deeper ability to connect and be present with other people.
Yeah, 100%. And, I don't have anything against psychedelics or things that open you up, because I have worked with psychedelics before in the past. I mean, my first medicine was ayahuasca and things like that. But what the reason to do that, right, is so that you can open. And I integrated it so much that my frequency at Unleash creates the space of that level of expansion. So when people enter the space, it's almost like they're entering a portal of a certain frequency that has already been activated. So it's almost like they're entering into as if it was a Aya ceremony, because or a psychedelic ceremony even, because it's already been expanded. And so people will feel the liberation, the freedom to express much easier and with so much love and acceptance that's there, because there's no judgment. Like literally, I've had people make love to the earth naked on the dance floor, and that probably happened because I set the tone when I danced naked, free bleeding, last Unleash. And that did happen. And it wasn't like because I was planning for that to happen. That was just what was inspired in that moment. And so many women got their periods that had not gotten their periods in months. So I never know what is being channeled through me that I'm here to activate. I just do it. I just show up for the thing, and the rest is like magic.
It is so magical. Unleash is so magical. And I cannot wait till that experience. And why I host this podcast and people are listening to it with me in their ear, what I'm really most interested in is being with you in person. So I would love to invite you to come and join at Unleash. You can go to wedeepen.com, click on that calendar, scroll down. You'll see Unleash September 23rd to the 25th in Austin, Texas. Jump on a flight. Maybe there'll be delays, maybe there won't be, but whatever journey that you have to embark on to get yourself here, I would love to share this experience with you and to introduce you to other people. And yeah, come and join us. And there's a special promo code as well. Once you RSVP, that'll pop up. You can get that code, type it in, register to come join us. It's camping, so get a tent, or there's some VIP spaces still available that your tent is all set up. And I would love to share this experience with you. Yadi, thank you for all the work that you're doing in the world. And I know you have something to say before you go on another live, an Instagram live.
I just want to say, don't let the distance stop you. I had people last time come from Romania, Germany, Canada. So there's people from all over the world. And if you are in the United States, make it happen. It's so worth it for you. And also, you're not going to get this type of personal development, ridiculously fun experience for the amount of money that normally you would have to pay for this type of transformation to happen. That I promise you.
I can promise you that too. No doubt. Thank you all for listening to another episode of Deepen with Christina. I do hope to share Unleash with you. If you do decide to go, send me a message. You can find me on Instagram at Christina Weber. Also, after you RSVP, you can connect with me inside of the community as well. This podcast is live within the We Deepen community. So come and join us out there. There's a lot of exciting stuff to share with you. Again, thank you all for tuning in. If you did enjoy this episode, please follow, rate, subscribe. And until next time, enjoy. Bye.